There's a difference between I'm an empath and I have empathy. Okay.
Empaths are a bit different than just a highly sensitive person because they tend to be absorptive like emotional sponges. And empathy is my heart goes out to you. I'm so sorry this happened to you. And the empath has all the sensitivities that highly sensitive people do, plus they have this emotional sponge element. The way I see it is that each person has their own unique path, and you have to give them the dignity of their path. But the empath can't stand it if the other person stumbles or falls. They want to
Mm-hmm.
go over to the person's path, pick them up, make sure they're all right, pat them, so the person doesn't learn any skills. But patience is important and self-love, developing as an empath
Yeah.
to not be hard on yourself. That's something to slowly but surely heal.
So, welcome to the Michelle Chalfant Show, Dr. Orloff.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, Michelle.
Oh my goodness. I was just saying to you, God bless you, because I found you years and years ago when, I grew up in the 70s. So nobody talked about what an empath was back then. And I was this little kid walking around, reading rooms, picked up on everybody's emotion. I was exhausted all the time and nobody knew why. I mean, I was taken to the doctor. I would just take naps every day through college and into my 20s until I started learning about empaths. So I'm going to hand the floor over to you. I would love to know a little bit about how you even got into this work because I know that you're a psychiatrist. So, how did you suddenly, or how did all this happen that you became one of my gurus and many others on being an empath and the whole world of living as an empath?
Well, that's a good question. I think I because I was born an empath and I grew up, an empathic child and so sensitive. And like you, I didn't have any guides. I didn't have anyone to put it in context. I had
Yeah.
no idea other than my mother telling me I was overly sensitive and I needed to get a thicker skin. Otherwise, I would never survive in the world. And so I took everything to heart. So I
Mhm.
thought, oh gosh, there must be something wrong with me. And I got very quiet and I held everything in. And my mother said, never mention another one of I had predictive dreams that happened, dreams again, or your intuitions again, never mention it at home. So I shut down and I got really involved with drugs in the late 60s to
Mhm.
try and run from all this. And through a series of very guided, blessed events, I met people who were able
Mhm.
to help me, who were able to see that I needed to incorporate my intuition, my empathy, what was happening with the empathy, that I was sensitive to energy. I had mentors, and I really believe that that's important in the path. Now, I've been a mentor to many people, and I'm sure you've had your own, everybody has had your own mentors. And I had one,
Mhm.
Dr. Thelma Moss at UCLA, who was a parapsychologist. And when I was about 16 or 17, my psychiatrist sent me to her to help me to integrate all of this. So, that's pretty unusual that I could have been sent to a psychiatrist who understood I needed to be seen by a therapist.
So true. What
And
psychiatrist back then is going to use this language? It's kind of, back then it must have been woo-woo and out there.
it was out there, but the late 60s, everybody was open,
Oh, true, true.
a different thing than, and if you haven't gone through it, you could see movies and stuff, but you don't really get how creative the whole thing was. And I think that served me in terms
Yeah.
of finding people that could help me, really legitimate people. And
Hmm.
that psychiatrist, I write about, in my first book, Second Sight, I write about all this, how I came into my empathic abilities as a child and then, my healing path and how I incorporate intuition and empathy in medicine now. So it's been a trajectory for me from
Yeah.
the time I was born of not sometimes, you have to go through a hard childhood in one way or another in order to wake up and find your calling.
So
And
true.
yeah,
So
so
true.
started, and then I had mentors along the way. And then I had a dream that told me to become a psychiatrist to legitimize
Mm,
in medicine. So I was given guidance, and I didn't really want to do it, and I wasn't good in science. And so I did it. I just re-enrolled in one school, one class in a junior college, community college. And then, my one became two, became 14 years of medical training where I
wow.
very, conventional medicine. And it was after that that I really began to meet people who could educate me about the energy realms and about
Mm,
sensitivities and what it means to sense and feel and know things and what that is. So I had mentors then too. So I think in my life, I'm very, very grateful for these people who helped me along the way. And I'm glad I could do that for other people.
mm, me too. I'm glad that you were able to do that for all of us. Tell us, what is an empath? How do you define it?
Well, an empath is somebody who has a lot of gifts, including intuition, sensitivity, the ability to connect to people, to nature, to the world, to themselves. Often they're
Mm,
very spiritual and they're open up to a God force, however you want to define it. And they a lot of times they're givers. They
mhm,
give, they love to give, but they tend to overgive. And so
mhm,
the curse part, that many people in the beginning of their development say, oh my God, it's a curse. And I go, okay,
mhm.
that's
Yep.
step one. That's fine. I understand why people feel that way. But you only feel that way because you don't have the tools to strengthen yourself and come into your own power. You're
Mm,
just wide open to the world and everything's attacking you and you're exhausted. And, it just seems impossible. And I know that,
yeah.
but it isn't. And, there are many tools that you can use. I'm still vulnerable at times when I go out in the world. If I'm not at my best, I get tired. That's the first symptom that I get when I know something's off as an empath, the tired.
Hmm.
So, and the noise. So I have to quiet it down and I have to rest. Or I
Yeah.
watch movies. Movies really help me to center myself because I get involved, in what's happening to the characters, and that helps to center me.
Mm.
Uh,
I love hearing that because I'll watch different things and it disconnects me from the world. And I'm not a big TV person, but I'll watch like something on Netflix or Prime or something. And it disconnects me from the rest of the world. And when I'm done watching a movie, I'm energized. It's interesting.
yeah,
It's interesting.
I feel the same way. I've always been that way. I've loved the movies. I love going to movie theaters.
Yeah.
Because I can lose myself in the most positive ways, and that as an empath helps
Yeah.
to charge me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you said that because my husband was like, "Why are you watching something? You should be outside meditating or something." I'm like, because it helps me to recharge in some way. So, thank you for validating me. That's great. I really relate to the drugs and the alcohol. That was me in high school and college because there was so much noise out there and I didn't know how to turn it off. And my negative self talk spun me into so much depression and anxiety. I had thoughts of suicide on a regular basis. I'm like, I can't handle living here. It was that bad for me. So thank God for the drugs and the alcohol back then. But then I learned boundaries and grounding, and I'm like, wow, everything started getting quiet. And then I learned how to stay with myself. So, can you go through what are some signs, other than being attracted to drugs and alcohol, of course, but what would be some signs that we are an empath? How do we know that this is happening? I'm going to say for us, because I really do see it as a gift now, although it used to overwhelm me like crazy, but now I do see it as a gift. So, what are some signs?
Well, in the front of the Empath Survival Guide, which is the handbook for empaths, if you're, in the beginning of
Yeah.
the, I have a 20-question self-assessment test. And it's important you to see how much of an empath you are. If you're a full-blown empath, if you're a partial empath, if you're not an
Mhm.
empath. So it's important to take that test. It's not rocket science and anyone can do it. And I suggest if you treat people and your therapists or your physicians or your, massage therapists, have your clients take this quiz because it will help you understand them and how to work
Hmm.
with, help them to
Yeah.
understand themselves. But anyways, in answer to your question, have you been labeled as overly sensitive? Are
Hmm.
you very sensitive to noise, smells, and excessive talking? That's empaths often, if somebody's like that, it's like, ah,
Yeah.
it's regular people don't understand what it's like. And
Yes.
so you have to learn how to say, please excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
or, I've really got to go, or something. You've got to exit. You cannot, just as a tip, you cannot stand there and listen to that.
Yeah.
And if you
True.
listening can be a very active skill in that you're absorbing energy when you listen. And if you
Right.
have somebody who's talking too much or tells long stories and you're trying to be polite, it drains you. You
It
might be
does.
sitting there not saying anything, but it's like, it's like taking from you. So or not, that's often the experience. It's not what I'm saying isn't applicable to everyone, but if you notice that, you've got to develop a strategy to deal with it. Otherwise, you're going to be running scared of everyone who talks too much.
Yeah.
So, and empaths, it's interesting. They're not usually chatterboxes. You know,
Hmm.
empaths are usually very respectful of how
Hmm.
they are with you. And it's only if they're anxious that they may talk more, but that isn't really a thing that the empath usually does. It's more non-empaths who talk all the time. So
Interesting.
um, it's also important to know that empaths often like to do things in small groups with 2 people, 3 people, rather
Mhm.
than large groups.
Yeah.
Because on a scientific level, our dopamine, the pleasure hormone, is very sensitive. So it takes like walking by the ocean and we're suddenly flooded with dopamine, you know,
Hmm.
or reading a nice book or listening to a beautiful musical piece. That's enough. That will satisfy us. But
Hmm.
non-empaths, often need to go to a U2 concert, in a big
Yeah.
stadium or a football game, because they love all that energy because they need that dopamine rush. But we get that same dopamine rush from quiet things. So it's different. Just know that non-empaths are different from empaths in a lot of ways.
And it's not bad. It's just different.
No, it's
Yeah.
not bad. It's simply a different temperament. It's
Right.
it's not bad or good. I mean, I think it's good because I'm an empath, but I don't think it's any better than a non-empath. I think
So
it's
what
being the way I am.
what are some gifts of being an empath? What are some things that we say? It's like our superpowers because we have this.
It's true. You get to talk to the flowers. You get to feel the energy in nature. You get to love deeply. You get to have
Hmm.
intuition. You get to see, the secrets of the universe just by looking at a little creature.
Hmm.
The little creatures and the animals can just set empaths into nirvana because they're so wonderful. And they know that it's not just, oh, how cute. It's this
It's
being
a
and I are
feeling. Yeah.
connecting,
Hmm.
and that ability to connect everyone who's listening, it's very valuable. I look at connection as one of the main things that I strive for in this lifetime. Because I
Yeah.
love connecting, love it.
Yeah.
Except if I'm tired or I don't want to connect, but when I'm, in good shape and I want to connect, with specific things. I don't want to connect with everybody. I don't go
Right.
into the market and want to connect. Oh, I'm here. I want to connect to everybody. It's not me. But if I see someone I like, or I listen to someone and I'm resonating, I do want to connect to them, and my partner said the nicest thing because I needed to, get some rest recently. And having conversations, if you have a partner and you're an empath, you have to learn a lot. You have to learn a lot, and you have to learn how to express your needs.
Yeah.
And so I was saying, I think I need, some alone time now because I have a lot going on. And he said, he says, I love when you tell me your feelings. I love connecting with you. And that,
Wow.
oh my God, that was the right thing to say. And he really means it. I love connecting with you. I love knowing where your heart is.
I think that's so important that we speak up for our needs. And
Yeah.
I'm going to say this happens with men, but I know women specifically. I think we have a hard time speaking up for what we need, and we don't want to be too much. We don't want to be in the way. We don't want to make anyone else upset. We don't want to offend anybody. But saying something like, I need a nap or I need a break or I just need to spend some alone time, it's powerful. And we need to be able to say that in order to recharge. So very important that we just step into our power in that way and say, no, we have to do this for ourselves. Whether you're an empath or not, let's face it, we've got to learn how to speak up for our needs. And we don't have to defend. We just, it's a statement, right? It's just this is just what I need right now.
Yes, and hopefully you'll have friends and or if you want a partner and you have a partner, they'll be able to understand this and they won't say some snide comment, because sometimes people who don't understand this will say snide comments. Oh, you're always tired, or
Yeah.
oh, why do you have to do that? Why can't you be like everybody else? That's what I've heard all my life, from different people. Or another a great thing that they say to empaths, which is so infuriating to me. You're the only one who feels that way. That's
Oh,
that's it right up exasperating statements to empaths. And it's like, when you're little and you say someone says that to you, you're like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. And when you're an adult and you're an empowered empath, you're like, so, I'm the only one who feels that way. That's the point, me. I don't care if anybody else feels that way. And so as a physician, when my patients come to me, I always, just they feel it, it exists. I mean, that's just the
right.
basic law. I mean, I'm not going to argue with them about their feelings or if they're on medications and it says, they have certain side effects, and if the DSM-4, it says you're not supposed to have any of those side effects. I just, they have the side effect. I mean, what are you going to do? You're not going to argue with them, but a lot of doctors do argue with them and they say it's not possible. You're just anxious or you're just this or just that. That's how sometimes people who don't understand about empaths will talk to you. So just be
Hmm.
aware that you are going to face that, but
Hmm.
remember our words because we've all gone through that. And those are subtle or not even so subtle ways of taking your power away. Or saying it doesn't matter what your feeling is, it's not in the book, so it doesn't exist.
Right.
It's so you just have to be prepared for that and know that they just don't know. They just don't get it. So
You just said something really important, which was something about, when we're children, we might hear things like, you're too sensitive, you're too quiet. Why do you take everything so personally? Shake it off, let it go. You're a crybaby. All of those things. And unfortunately, that programming gets laid, in the neural pathways. And then we believe there is something wrong with us. So then as an adult, we really have to do a lot of correcting around that because we were told things that weren't true when we were little. Because saying, hearing things like you're too sensitive or you're a crybaby is like, no, you are sensitive and that's a superpower. So really it's flipping around all those earlier beliefs that we heard that might have been judgmental or shaming even to us, correct?
Oh, yeah, so correct. And loving people can say these kind of things. These aren't necessarily evil people.
Right.
They're loving people who have a point of view about the world. They don't get your point of view, so they want to make you into them.
Yeah.
They want to make you like them, and
Yeah.
that's what happen. So you have to
Yeah.
be you. And
Right.
I've always been the road less traveled to my parents' dismay because they wanted me to go straight ahead, but I was always winding in that little creek on the side. That's just my personality. That's just what interests me. And that's that. I don't want to be anybody else. That's what
Yeah.
about me. That's what I love about me. It's just me.
Yeah.
And but the society might try and force you into another path because they're uncomfortable with you taking whatever path you're taking.
Right.
These are just typical things that come up for empaths. And so
Hmm.
if you're just starting, please get the Empath Survival Guide. That's a good beginning book that will,
Okay.
awaken you, give you a foundation. It's very important, you know,
Okay.
to get a foundation in this, to not just wander around aimlessly wondering why you're so tired all the time.
What about how do we empathize with people? And wait, I would love for you to define that. There's a difference between I'm an empath and I have empathy. What's the difference? Because just because you have empathy does not mean you're an empath, but having empathy is very important, right?
Yes, well, most human beings have empathy. And
Yes.
I don't have a number, but I know Elaine Aron has done some research work on highly sensitive people, and she
Mhm.
says 20% are highly sensitive of the population from what she's found. Empaths
Okay.
are a bit different than just a highly sensitive person because they tend to be absorptive like emotional sponges. They're not just
Mhm.
sensitive to stimuli, they take on things, they're sponges. And that's
Yeah.
the another
Yeah.
element added onto it. And
Yeah.
so, and empathy is my heart goes out to you. I'm so sorry this happened to you, or I'm so happy. This is such a joyous
Yes.
day. You can have positive empathy. You can have positive feelings. But then when you go up the timeline of empathy, or I call it the empathy spectrum, which
Mhm.
is related to autism or anything like that. It's just the empathy spectrum. You go up and you're a highly sensitive person, sight, smells, sounds, people's voices, uh,
Yes. Yes.
doing, labels in your sweater that's scratching you. All of that is like unbearable to highly sensitive people. It's just too much. And
Hmm.
because you're really feeling every little detail of what's happening, in your body. So you have to learn to, get soft clothes. You have to really cater what your needs are to what you get so that you turn down the music so it's not blasting, or if you tell your mate to use headphones because you can't stand loud rock music or whatever you can't stand. So
Yeah.
you have to learn to work with that. But higher on the empathy spectrum, you have the empath. And the empath has
Mhm.
all the sensitivities that highly sensitive people do, plus they have this emotional sponge element
Hmm.
and to overgive a lot, and they tend to be very codependent in their giving,
Hmm. Yep.
and other people's experiences are often more important than theirs, and they want to help too much, and they could be actual busybodies, because the way I see it is that each person has their own unique path, and you have to give them the dignity of their path. But the empath can't stand it if the other person stumbles or falls. They want to
Hmm.
go over to the person's path, pick them up, take them to their destination, make sure they're all right, pat them, so the person doesn't learn any skills.
Right. Right. It's hard for us empaths to not help everyone.
That's right.
So
That's
true.
right. You must learn that.
Yeah.
Everyone listening,
Yeah.
there's in this book, The Genius of Empathy, go to
Hmm.
the chapter on healthy giving. I think that's the most important chapter, at least for many empaths. And it's how you can give in healthy ways and what will cause you to give in unhealthy ways and how to correct.
Okay. Talk a little bit about that. Just give us a couple. What are some unhealthy ways that we give?
Let's say somebody's sick in the hospital.
Hmm.
You're sitting there with them and
Hmm.
are you feeling better yet? How's your pain? Can I get you anything? And you're scurrying around them and they're like, get out of here. That it's like you're making them worse with all of your excessive attention, which is well-meaning. I want to
Yes.
acknowledge that. You just
Yeah.
want them to feel all right. You want
Yeah.
them not to be in pain. If they are in pain, oh, what else can you do to get them out of pain? So instead of accepting what is, learning how, there's a section in here on how to, in the Genius of Empathy, on how to hold sacred space without getting overly involved with people.
Mm.
That's so
Yeah.
important. It's how do you give from your heart without absorbing at the same time? You see
Yeah.
that these are skills that you have to learn, especially if you're sitting with somebody who's ill or going through a hard time. You have to learn how to do that. And in terms of arguments, if you're having an argument with somebody, disagreement, how do you have empathy for them? How do you not, react, be emotional, reactive, and start getting into a fight and doing this that, which is such an old pattern that as humans we have to really rise above. We need to be able to deal with conflict without attacking people.
So
You know,
can you give us even one thing? Like, what can we do when someone is going through a hard time or they're stressed? How do we not pick up on that and try to take it over for them? What do we need to do? What are some practices?
well, the first thing is the affirmation. It's none of my business to take on anybody else's pain.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my job description. That's
Yeah.
helpful. That's a codependent's job description. You know,
Yeah.
codependent wants to do it for them, wants to process their pain, wants to help them get out of
Right.
pain, wants to find another boyfriend for them. Let me find another one just to fix it right away. If
Yeah.
there's a breakup, no, none of that is healthy for an empath to do. Empaths need to learn to tolerate other people's discomfort and to give them the dignity of their own path.
Mm-hmm. For
Anybody.
for me, it was so much around learning how to process my own emotions of uncomfortability if
Yeah,
you're not okay.
right.
Like I got to sit in that and stay grounded and learn how to feel those emotions and let them come up. That was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
Just allowing the emotions to come through. And I thought, oh, I'm okay. That person is going through their thing, but I'm okay with it now. And that was what broke my cycle of codependency and people pleasing and all the things. And it was hard, but once I learned how to process those emotions, it was a game changer and stay grounded and not tilt and be give them all of my power.
Absolutely. That's so important. And I just turned to random page and I got practice loving detachment.
Yeah.
With loving detachment, you care about someone without over identifying with their struggle. Inwardly affirm, I am a separate person. This is their experience, not mine.
Yes. And what helped me was remembering it's a learning and growth opportunity for that other person.
Exactly.
So so it's not that I want to let them go and let them suffer and crumble to pieces. There's actually a learning and a possible moment of empowerment for them when they're able to rise up and work through their stuff on their own. And I would sit on my hands and go, okay, this is so uncomfortable, but I'm just going to feel it, feel it, feel it. That changed my whole life. My energy started to rise up. I was like, oh, hold on. I think it's because I'm not so involved in everyone else's life.
Wonderful. That's such a
Yeah,
liberation when one can
huge.
anticipate that, because people are often taught by their parents that to be a compassionate person, you want to take away other people's pain. You want to be
Mhm.
there for them. You want to, and you have to reevaluate that to be a healthy empath.
Yes.
Let me just read you just a couple of do's and don'ts
Yeah, please.
of giving. Do create a safe space for someone to express themselves. Do
Mm,
listen more and talk less or remain quiet. Do be tolerant, use a kind tone of voice, come from a place of love and make gentle eye contact. Gentle eye contact. Don't like probe them. Empath.
yeah.
Don't try to fix or heal the person's pain. Don't make the conversation about you by sharing similar or worse experiences you've had or heard about. That is a one that really gets me, where you express something, you
Yes.
love someone, and then they make it all about them,
Yeah.
and that's or you make it all about you. Don't do that. Let somebody just talk about their experience without adding your experience onto it. That's a
Yeah.
sign of respect. And do not offer unsolicited advice about possible solutions that work for you or tell someone what to do. So, unsolicited advice, empaths are so big on unsolicited advice. I love giving advice. I love helping people. If I could help everyone in the world, I would love to do it and give them my advice, but they don't want it. That's not what they're
Mhm.
asking for.
Mm-mm.
So just so, and do not interrupt or interject your own thoughts. Do not correct the person on what they said or how they said it. That's really important. And do not judge, label, or minimize the situation. And do not fidget, yawn, check your phone, or look bored when you're with somebody. So this is chapter 8,
Thank
the
you.
basics of healthy giving. This is empaths need to learn how to give well. That's a basic
That's
skill.
good.
Give in a positive way for you to make you feel good. So you're not running scared of all these people who want things from you.
But it seems like some of those also were qualities because I'm thinking of a couple people I know. I'm like, they're not empaths, but they do those things too. So I think those are great qualities that most humans need to learn. As far as like giving unsolicited advice, right? So many people. But I understand what you're saying. Being an empath, it's like this impulse, like we have to give our advice, or else we feel like, we're not helping that other person.
Yes, and the ones who are not empaths who do that, they don't get drained by it. The empaths
Yeah,
get drained.
so true. So true. So how do you show empathy for someone you don't like or that you don't agree with?
By not being triggered emotionally with them and
Mm,
reacting in a fight or flight way. What human beings usually do is if they feel something, if they hear something they're threatened by, they'll either run away or they'll attack.
yeah.
And if you don't agree with somebody, what I do, and I love to practice this with people because
Yeah.
it takes practice, where I breathe, I center myself. I'm hearing this very distasteful thing, whether it's on the news or whether it's a person. I'm thinking,
Hmm.
you're sitting there like, oh, but you don't say anything. And, because what's the point? You don't want to get into it.
Right.
And so I listen and I don't agree with anything the person is saying. And
Hmm.
I just say, thanks, I'll give it some thought. Bye. Just
Yeah.
5 seconds, 5 seconds,
And you're done.
the right energy. I'm not like, oh, I have to run or I hate you or, how can you think that way? I'm nothing. You don't want to get into it with these people.
Okay.
And I'm sure you can identify with finding such people in your life or in the public arena. It's just
Hmm.
so mad, but there's no point in fighting back. It's not going to get you anywhere except they're probably a lot better at that than you are, and you're going to get demolished.
Yes, for sure. So then how do you show empathy and still keep boundaries? What do you say to those people?
Oh, that happened. This is the most common technique that really is so important because people are always going to try and get over your boundaries. Every day you're going to have examples of this. Some
Hmm.
somewhere, someone somewhere is going to overstep their boundaries, even if
Yes.
he's getting too close to you in the line in the market.
Yep.
The,
Yep.
something simple like that, I just move, myself, my body
Hmm.
a little further away because I'm very sensitive to the energy of people in lines. You know,
Yeah.
usually they're on their phones though, so they're distracted, which is great.
If we're overstimulated, what's something we can do? Because that does happen to us, right? A lot as empaths. And our nervous system is just, I call it running hot. What can we do to bring ourselves down or to regulate?
Well, I'm a meditator, so I meditate. I have a beautiful altar in the corner of my bedroom. I have flowers on it. I have fruit. I have pictures of my spiritual people. And
Mm-hmm.
I light my candles. I light my incense. I shut the door and I just calm down and I just pray to
Mm-hmm.
be at peace again and not be so overstimulated. No, and sometimes the quiet comes in the meditation or just by virtue of being quiet myself and not
Mm-hmm.
engaging in any kind of talking
Mm,
or
okay.
texting.
Yeah.
No interactions, just in your own bubble for that time period. And then you could come down.
So kind of removing all stimuli that's around you and reconnecting back to yourself, doing some deep breathing and meditation and things like that.
In your spiritual core.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
realize there's more than the human goings on. The human someone just recently said the human goings on is horizontal movement, but the spiritual is vertical movement.
I love that.
Yeah, nice.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Crown chakra here and energy, learning to work with energy. And that could
Mm,
come to your rescue when you get overloaded.
mm. I'm curious about empathy. I've been asked this question over the years. I'd love your opinion on this. Is it possible for someone to learn or have empathy that might not have it? Not being an empath, but just empathy in general, where they can actually tune into someone else or really relate to what another human is feeling.
Well, I think if you're human, you have some degree of empathy, except if you're a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people are wired differently and they don't have empathy as we know
Yeah.
it. They're
Yeah.
full. So there's a chapter in the Empath Survival Guide and the Genius of Empathy on narcissists
Mm-hmm.
and sociopathy and even psychopaths. You,
Mm-hmm.
you could be attracted to a psychopath. The nicest people are attracted to psychopaths. But they're not wired to have empathy. So as empath, you need to believe that. You see, the problem is empaths never believe that, or very rarely believe that, because they feel like you could fix them.
Mm.
Your sensitivity, your understanding can help the troubled childhood of this person that causes them to murder all these others. I'll fix them, and that's I'm exaggerating, but that's what empaths do. And the same
Yeah.
with narcissists. Oh, he or she didn't mean to do that. They just, they didn't mean to call me stupid. They're just having a bad day. No, and that's pretty scary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So,
like,
so if I'm not though narcissist or psychopath or sociopath, and I'm someone that might have grown up maybe in an unsafe or neglected childhood, whatever their childhood might be, and they just didn't really learn good skills around empathy, can we grow that muscle?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's the genius of empathy. The subtitle is Practical Skills to Heal Your Sensitive Self, Your Relationships, and the World. And if someone has gone through trauma and they've shut down, part of the healing path is to learn how to reopen in a safe way where you can set boundaries and as
Mm,
have more control over your life than what you had as a child. And also it involves inner child work where you need to reclaim the child that was traumatized, or
right.
hurt, and bring him or her back with you in your life today so you can be, the one who could love them and nurture them.
So it is possible. And what would be their first step? Like, is it something as simple as I'm curious about what I'm feeling? Like what might it be? Like just start to get curious about what might I be feeling if like right now as my partner, as my friend, as my whomever's sharing this with me, what's coming up for me?
Yes, or it might be easier to start with nature, as human
Mm-hmm.
harder to deal with than animals or nature. If
Mm-hmm.
you have a little dog, let's say, what does my heart feel towards this little creature?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's neutral. Like having it in nature or an animal, it's like you're not going to get pushback if you were to open up and feel that. Right.
right,
Great
right.
point. Yeah, I was sitting out I did a meditation this morning and I did some journaling. And I was sitting out looking out over the lake this morning. It was a little cold, but I just closed my eyes. I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just could feel my heart opening up. And you're right. There's no fear that I'm going to get pushback or something's going to come back at me. It's very easy to open the heart when you're in a space of nature or like with my dogs. I was always so easy to open up and love the heck out of those things. So that's a great point. Thank you. So What's the difference between empathy, compassion, and being an empath?
Well, these days, a lot of people are making those distinctions, and I think they're valid. Compassion is thought of as safer than empathy because you don't get the energy drain. Compassion is my heart goes out to you, and I'm going to go to the store and bring you groceries so that you feel, you have some food. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
action oriented compassion.
Okay.
And empathy is I'm feeling what you're feeling. I'm connecting to you, which is a little more problematic if you don't have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
But compassion is more, people are saying, why not just be compassionate? Why do we need to even deal with empathy? And it just depends what you're looking for. I mean, compassion and empathy are like this, they're like married, they're best friends, they're always together. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're the compassion route and action and compassion, go for it. You can have compassion and empathy.
Right.
People are just so afraid of taking on the emotions of other people or the pain. They're very afraid of that.
Yeah.
And like, stay away because I don't know how to deal with that if I'm faced with that. That's how they feel. And
Yeah.
that's give you tools in the healthy giving chapter of the genius of empathy, how to do it and feel great about it. And
Mhm.
it's not a huge push-pull issue. It's just, I'm going to do this now. And this is the tool I learned. This is the tool I'm going to practice. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll get better as I do it.
Mm. Beautiful.
But patience is important and self-love,
Mm-hmm.
developing as an empath
Yeah.
to not be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Empaths tend to beat, 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 beat. And that's something to slowly but surely heal because you want
Yeah.
nice voices talking to you. You want to have, oh, you did a great job with that. That was so great that you even tried it. No, you
Mhm.
have to be right along with yourself. Got to be friends with yourself as you're practicing.
Yeah. Staying connected to self is what I keep hearing you say is just of the utmost importance. And we learn to disconnect, whether we're empaths or not, when we're growing up. We just learn to do that. And with these things, these cell phones, just keeps disconnecting from self. So it's imperative that we take the times to journal, to meditate, to be in nature, to do those kinds of things, to stay connected. So important. Is there anything that I might have missed? I want to shift over to the live Q&A with the Academy members, but I want to make sure that I haven't missed anything at all. So is there anything else you want to add to this?
Oh, so much.
I
You know,
know. You are going into your last two books, so there's so much we could talk about. But any highlights that people really, really need or could use as a takeaway?
if you're sick, or if you're emotionally upset, or if you're going through a challenge and you're an empath, the first thing to do is to put your hand on your heart,
Mm,
breath, and come back to yourself and deal with whatever it is you're facing from this place, not from up here. Because
yeah,
mind is just, oh, what about this? And what if this happens? And what, by then you're swirling like a top and you're no good for anybody.
yeah.
Want to begin again, always with the hands coming together in the
Hmm.
middle of the chest where the heart is, breathing, focusing on your beloved nature, whatever it might be, the ocean or your lake, focusing on the beautiful lake outside or your little animal, hugging your animal, but just get the heart open so it begins to send healing energy to you. Because you need to have that healing energy, not the frenetic mental energy.
Yeah,
You want that for logic, that's true, but you don't want it going, round and round all the time because that will make the situation worse for you.
yeah.
So just be aware of that. Remember that. Try to remember that.
Yes. No, staying connected to the heart is everything. We have to stay connected to the heart and body. Thank you so much. Where would people find you?
You can find me at drjudithorloff.com. And the books are The Genius of Empathy with the healthy giving chapter the Empath Survival Guide, which is Empath 101, and I'm having a children's book coming out later on this year called The Highly Sensitive Rabbit,
Hmm.
about, this rabbit in the Sonoran Desert who was a highly sensitive rabbit who was having such a hard time, and how she, Aurora, my nickname is Aurora,
I love it.
came into her power as a sensitive rabbit.
Oh, that's beautiful. I can't wait. I've written all of this down. I will make sure to add to the show notes. We're going to shift over to Q&A, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here today and thank you for the work that you do in the world around being an empath because your work is very, very, very much needed, especially in today's world because there's a lot coming at us. There's a lot. So thank you.